Tarantula is alive. All right, we're good on that. Hey, Caesar's alive too, bruh. Caesar needs a heater. Caesar needs a heater. All right, we're gonna read Dracula and continue reading Dracula. I want to get this out of the way, so I ain't gotta do it later today. I'm gonna get it out of the way right now. I feel like I'm on page 20 or something like that. I gotta be, no. Okay, I did read that part. All right. Next page, I'm on page 24, actually. Presently, with an excuse, he left me, asked me to put all my papers together. He was some little time away, and I began to look at some of the books around me. One was an atlas, which I found open naturally at England, as if the map had been used. I'm stumbling already, bro. One was an atlas, which I found open naturally at England, as if that map had been much used. On looking at it, I found in certain places little rings marked, and on examining these, I noticed that one was near London on the east side, manifestly where his new estate was situated. The other two were Exeter and Whitby on the Yorkshire coast. It was the better part of an hour when the Count returned. "Aha," he said, "still at your books? Good. But you must not work always. Come, I am informed that your supper is ready." He took my arm and we went into the next room, where I found an excellent supper ready on the table. The Count again excused himself, as he had dined out on his being away from home. But he sat as on the previous night and chatted whilst I ate. After supper, I smoked, as on the last evening. An Count stayed with me, chatting and asked me questions on every conceivable subject, hour after hour. I felt that it was getting very late indeed, but I did not say anything, for I felt under obligation to meet my host's wishes in every way. I was not sleepy, as a long sleep yesterday had fortified me, but I could not help experiencing that chill which comes over me at the coming of the dawn, which is like, in its way, the turn of the tide. They say that people who are near death die generally at the change to the dawn or at the turn of the tide. Anyone who has, when tired and tied, as it were, to his post, experienced this change in the atmosphere can well believe it. Anyone who has, when tired and tied, as it were, to his post, experienced this change in the atmosphere can well believe it. All at once, we heard the crow of a cock coming up with preternatural shrillness through the clear morning air. Count Dracula, jumping to his feet, said, "Why, there's the morning again. How remiss I am to let you stay up so long. You must take your conversation regarding my dear new country of England less interesting, so that I may not forget how time flies by us." And with a courtly bow, he quickly left me. I went into my own room and drew the curtains, but there was little to notice. My window opened into the courtyard. All I could see was the warm gray of quickening sky. So I pulled the curtains again and have written of this day, 8 May. I began to fear as I wrote in this book that I was getting too diffuse, but now I'm glad that I went into detail from the first, for there is something so strange about this place and all in it that I cannot but feel uneasy. I wish I were safe out of it, or that I had never come. It may be that this strange night existence is telling on me. I wish I were safe out of it, or that I had never come. It may be that this strange night existence is telling on me. But would that were all? If there were anyone to talk to, I could bear it, but there is no one. I have only the Count to speak with, and he, I fear I am myself the only living soul within the place. Let me be prosaic, so far as facts can be. It will help me to bear up, and imagination must not run riot with me. If it does, I am lost. Let me say at once how I stand, or seem to. I only slept a few hours when I went to bed. And feeling that I could not sleep anymore, got up. I had hung my shaving glass by the window and was just beginning to shave. Suddenly, I felt a hand on my shoulder and heard the Count's voice say to me, "Good morning." Good morning. I started, for it amazed me that I had not seen him since the reflection of the glass covered the whole room behind me. Every time. I started, for it amazed me that I had not seen him since the reflection of the glass covered the whole room behind me. In starting, I had cut myself slightly, but did not notice it at the moment. Having answered the Count's salutation, I turned to the glass again to see how I had been mistaken. This time, there could be no error, for the man was close to me, and I could see him over my shoulder, but there was no reflection of him in the mirror. The whole room behind me was displayed, but there was no sign of a man in it, except myself. This was startling, and come on the top of so many strange things was beginning to increase that vague feeling of uneasiness which I always had when the Count is near. But at the instant I saw that the cut had bled a little and the blood was trickling over my chin. I laid down the razor, turning as I did so half round to look for some sticking plaster. When the Count saw my face, his eyes blazed with a sort of demonic fury, and he suddenly made a grab at my throat. I drew away, and his hand touched a string of beads which held the crucifix. It made an instant change in him, for the fury passed so quickly that I could hardly believe that it was ever there. "Take care," he said. "Take care how you cut yourself. It is more dangerous than you think in this country." Then seizing a shaving glass, he went on, "And this is the wretched thing that has done the mischief. It is a foul bauble of man's vanity. Away with it." And opening the heavy window with one wrench of his terrible hand, he flung out the glass, which was shattered into 1,000 pieces on the stones of the courtyard far below. Then he withdrew without a word. It is very annoying, for I do not see how I am to shave, unless in my watch case or the bottom of the shaving pot, which is fortunately of metal. When I went into the dining room, breakfast was prepared, but I could not find the Count anywhere. So I breakfasted alone. It is strange that as yet I have not seen the Count eat or drink. He must be a very peculiar man. After breakfast, I did a little exploring in the castle. I went out on the stairs and found a room looking towards the south. The view is magnificent, and from where I stood, there was every opportunity of seeing it. The castle is on the very edge of a terrible precipice. A stone falling from the window could fall 1,000 feet without touching anything. As far as the eye can reach is a sea of green tops, with occasionally a deep rift where there is a chasm. Here and there are silver threads where the river winds in deep gorges through the forest. But I am not in heart to describe beauty. For when I had seen the view, I had explored further. Doors, doors, doors everywhere, and all locked and bolted. In no place save from the windows and the castle walls is there an available exit. The castle is a veritable prison, and I am a prisoner. Damn. But I am in no heart to describe beauty, for when I had seen the view, I had explored further. Doors, doors, doors everywhere, and all locked and bolted, and no place saved from the windows and the castle walls is there available exit. The castle is a veritable prison, and I'm a prisoner. All right, so there's a good morning, good morning, good morning. So there has been a good switch here. And so while he was shaving, his shaving glass captured the whole room around him. And so the Count is standing behind him, and he can't see the Count's reflection in the mirror. That scared him. But he also had just cut himself. So now he has some blood. And when he turned around, the Count saw the blood, got mad, and grabbed his throat. And he was like, whoa. And when he pulled back, he saw the crucifix on his neck. And then so he got mad at first, and then he drew away. He's like, you gotta take care, you can't be doing this. And then took his shaving glass. He took his shaving glass and threw it out the window. And then just walked out. But he ain't question it. He ain't question it. Oh, man. Yeah, so there's been a switch. There's been a switch. He can't quite put his finger on what's happening. He can't. Waiting to move his shades on. Oh, I haven't seen the movie. Well, I seen Dracula 2000, but I don't think that's the original Dracula movie. I don't think I've seen the original Dracula movie. So that would be actually kind of cool to read this book and then to actually watch the movie. That's cool. The movie got to be old as hell. The movie got to be old as hell. Then it's gonna that might make it hard to watch. The movie might be in black and white. It's gonna make it hard to watch. This is already hard to read because of the way that sometimes it's just the ordering of the words. The book more details. Sometimes it's just the ordering of the words. I'm like, yo, like, it's just certain words that would be switched around and make it harder to read. It's all right, though. You know what I'm saying? It's all right. Well, it was getting me because he was being so descriptive of the territory and the people and the way the people was dressed and how they talked in the beginning. But if you actually just kind of put yourself, it's a good movie. If you kind of just put yourself in there and just, you know what I'm saying, kind of just imagine how things is going. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out how good it would be if I didn't know anything about Dracula, right? And didn't know anything about what's supposed to happen and what's going on. Then, like, how you would, interpret some of this. All right. I kind of want to keep going. When I found that I was a prisoner, a sort of wild feeling came over me. I rushed up and down the stairs, trying every door and peering out of every window I could find. But after a little, the conviction of my helplessness overpowered all my other feelings. When I look back after a few hours, I think I must have been mad for the time, for I behaved much as a rat does in a trap. When, however, the conviction had come to me that I was helpless, I sat down quietly, as quietly as I've ever done anything in my life, and began to think over what was best to be done. No shit. I am thinking still, and has yet to have come to a definite conclusion. Of one thing only am I certain, that it is no use making my ideas known to the Count. He knows well that I am in prison, and as he has done it himself, and has doubtless his own motives for it, he would only deceive me if I trusted him fully with the facts. So far as I can see, my only plan would be to keep my knowledge and my fears to myself and my eyes open. I know, either being deceived like a baby by my own fears, or else I'm in despite straits. I'm in desperate straits. And if the latter be so, I need and shall need all my brains to get through. Yeah, it's that sentence right there. That sentence right there, he said, however, the conviction had come to me that I was helpless, I sat down quietly. As quietly as I have ever done anything in my life, and began to think over what was best to be done. I am thinking still, and as yet have come to a definite conclusion. That sentence right there lets you know. He was like, oh shit. He sat down. He said, oh shit. Hey, bro, he sat down. He said, I'm thinking, and I'm thinking still. Man, he already know. I'm locked up. They won't let me out. Hey, bro, he said, I'm in jail. He know I'm in jail. He know he got me locked up. I can't tell him nothing. He ain't no way out. Listen, he already set the scene for you, too. When he said, it's like, how it's like foreshadowing? He said, this is the part that's like foreshadow. You know how sometimes you be like, I might be able to jump out the window. No. The sentence before in the last chapter, a stone falling from the window would fall 1,000 feet without touching anything. He can't jump. There's no way out. And the Count, see, what's messed up is the Count was like, yeah, you can walk around and you can explore anywhere in the castle, unless the door is locked. And if you knew what I knew, you wouldn't want to go behind that locked door. He going through, all the doors is locked. He like, oh shit. All right. I had hardly come to this conclusion when I heard the great door below shut and knew that the Count had returned. He did not come at once to the library, so I went cautiously to my own room and found him making the bed. This was odd, but only confirmed what I had all along thought. There were no servants in the house. This shit right here make you want to cry. This shit right here make you want to cry. We on chapter 3. This shit right here make you want to cry. Because he was like, oh shit. Ain't no servants in here. He the one cooking and cleaning in this big ass castle. There were no servants in the house. When later I saw him through the chink of the hinges of the door, laying the table in the dining room, I was assured of it. For if he does himself all these menial offices, surely it is proof that there is no one else to do them. This gave me a fright. For if there is no one else in the castle, it must have been the Count himself who was the driver of the coach that brought me here. This is a terrible thought, for if so, what does it mean that he could control the wolves as he did by only holding up his hand in silence? How was it that all the people at Bistritz and on the coach had some terrible fear for me? What meant the giving of the crucifix, of the garlic, of the wild rose, of the mountain ash? Bless that good woman who hung the crucifix around my neck, for it is a comfort and a strength to me whenever I touch it. It is odd that a thing which I had been taught to regard with disfavor and as idolatrous, should be in a time of loneliness and trouble be of help? Is it that there is something in the essence of the thing itself, or that it is a medium, a tangible help in conveying memories of sympathy and comfort? Ooh, that nigga preaching. At first, he didn't want that. At first, he didn't want that crucifix. He was like, oh my God, they give me this crucifix, bro. I can't be wearing this. This ain't my religion. This ain't the third, da da da. That's all he think about now. Like, they was looking out for me. Sometime, if it may be, I must examine this matter and try to make up in my mind about it. In the meantime, I must find out all I can about Count Dracula, as it may help me to understand. Tonight he may talk of himself if I turn the conversation that way. I must be very careful, however, not to awake his suspicion. Midnight. I have had a long talk with the Count. I asked him a few questions of Transylvania history, and he warmed up to the subject wonderfully. I had a long talk with the Count. I asked him a few questions of Transylvania history, and he warmed up to the subject wonderfully. In his speaking of things and people, and especially of battles, he spoke as if he had been present at them all. This he afterwards explained by saying that to a boyar, the pride of his house and name is his own pride, that their glory is his glory, that their fate is his fate. Whenever he spoke of his house, he always said we, and spoke almost in the plural, like a king speaking. I wish I could put down all he said exactly as he said to me, for to me it was most fascinating. It seemed to have in it a whole history of the country. He grew excited as he spoke and walked about the room pulling his great white mustache and grasping anything on which he had laid his hands, as though he would crush it by main strength. It's the order of the words, bro. Hold on. He grew excited as he spoke and walked about the room pulling his great white mustache and grasping anything on which he laid his hands, as though he would crush it by main strength. One thing he said, which I shall put down as nearly as I can, for it tells in its way the story of his race. We Shletskis, we Shakilis, I said Shletskis, Skellies. We Skellies, whatever. I'm gonna say Shletskis still. Have a right to be proud. For in our veins flows the blood of many brave races who fought as the lion fights for lordship. Here, in the whirlpool of European races, the Ugric tribe, bore down from Iceland the fighting spirit which Thor and Woden gave them, which their berserkers displayed to such full intent on the seaboards of Europe, and of Asia and Africa too, till the peoples thought that the werewolves themselves had come. It's a long ass sentence. Here in the whirlpool of European races, the Ugric tribe bore down from Iceland the fighting spirit which Thor and Woden gave them, which their berserkers displayed to such full intent on the seaboards of Europe, and of Asia and Africa too, till the peoples thought that the werewolves had come. Here too, when they came, they found the Huns, whose warlike fury had swept the earth like a living flame. To the dying peoples, hail that in their veins ran the... Here too, when they came, they found the Huns, whose warlike fury had swept the earth like a living flame. To the dying peoples hail that in their veins ran the blood of those witches, who, expelled from Scythia, had made it with the devils in the desert. Fools, fools! What devil or what witch was ever so great as Attila, whose blood is in these veins? He held up his arms. Is it a wonder that we were a conquering race, that we were proud, that when the Magyar, the Lombard, the Avar, the Bulgar, or the Turk poured his thousands on our frontier, we drove them back? Is it strange that when Arpad and his legions swept through the Hungarian fatherland, he found us here when he reached the frontier? That the Honfoglagas was completed there. And when the Hungarian flood swept eastward, the Schwakelis, I'm gonna say Schleskis, were claimed as kindred by the victorious Magyars, and to us for centuries was trusted the guarding of the frontier of Turkeyland. Hey, and more than that, endless duty of the frontier guard, for as the Turks say, water sleeps, an enemy is sleepless. Who more gladly than we throughout the four nations received the bloody sword, or at its warlike call flock quicker to the standard of the king? Or at his warlike called flock quicker to the standard of the king? When was redeemed the great shame of my nation, the shame of Kosovo, when the flags of the Wallach and the Magyar went down beneath the crescent? Who was it but one of my own race who at Voivode crossed the Danube and beat the Turk on his own ground? This was a Dracula indeed. Woe was it that his own unworthy brother, when he had fallen, sold his people to the Turk and brought the shame of slavery on them. Was it not this Dracula indeed who inspired that other of his race, who in a later age again and again brought his forces over the great river into Turkeyland? Who, when he was beaten back, came again and again and again, though he had to come alone from the bloody field where his troops were being slaughtered, since he knew that he alone could ultimately triumph. They said that he thought only of himself. Bah! What good are peasants without a leader? Where ends the war without a brain and heart to conduct it? Again, when after the battle of Mohawks, we threw off the Hungarian yoke, we of the Dracula blood were amongst their leaders, for our spirit would not brook that we were not free. Ah, young sir, the Schletskis and the Dracula as their heart's blood, their brains, and their swords can boast a record that mushroom growths like the Habsburgs and the Romanovs can never reach. The warlike days are over. Blood is too precious a thing in these days of dishonorable peace. And the glories of the great races are as a tale that is told. It was by this time close on morning, and we went to bed. Remember, this diary seems horribly like the beginning of the Arabian Nights, for everything has to break off at cockcrow, or like the ghost of Hamlet's father. 12 May. Let me begin with the facts. Bare, meager facts, verified by books and figures, and of which there can be no doubt. I must not confuse them with experiences, which will have to rest on my own observation or my memory of them. Last evening, when the Count came from his room, he began asking me questions on legal matters and on doing of certain kinds of business. I had spent the day wearily over books and simply to keep my mind occupied went over some of the matters I had been examined in at Lincoln's Inn. There was a certain method in the Count's inquiries, so I shall try to put them down in sequence. The knowledge may somehow or sometime be useful to me. First, he asked if a man in England might have 2 solicitors or more. I told him he might have a dozen if he wished, but that it would not be wise to have more than one solicitor engaged in one transaction, as only one could act at a time, and that to change would be certain to militate against his interests. He seemed thoroughly to understand and went on to ask if there would be any practical difficulty in having one man to attend, say to banking, and another to look after shipping, in case local help were needed in a place far from the home of the banking solicitor. I asked him to explain more fully so that I might not by any chance mislead him. So he said, I shall illustrate. Your friend and mine, Mr. Peter Hawkins, from under the shadow of your beautiful cathedral at Exeter, which is far from London, buys for me through your good self my place at London. Good. Now here let me say frankly, lest you should think it strange that I have sought the services of one so far from London instead of someone resident there. That my motive was that no local interest might be served, save my wish only. My motive was that no local interest might be served, save my wish only. And as one of London residents might, perhaps, have some purpose of himself or friend to serve, I went thus afield to seek my agent, whose labor should be only to my interest. Now suppose I, who have much affairs, wish to ship goods, say to Newcastle, or Durham, or Harwich, or Dover, might it not be that it could be more ease be done by consigning to one in these parts? I answered that certainly it would be most easy, but that we solicitors had a system of agency, one for the other, so that local work could be done locally on instruction from any solicitor, so that the client, simply placing himself in the hands of one man, could save his wishes carried out by him without further trouble. But, said he, I could be at liberty to direct myself. Is it not so? Of course, I replied. And such is often done by men of business who do not like the whole of their affairs to be known by any one person. Good, he said, and then went on to ask about the means of making consignments and the forms to be gone through, and of all sorts of difficulties which might arise, but by forethought could be guarded against. I explained all these things to him to the best of my ability, and he certainly left me under the impression that he would have made a wonderful solicitor. For there was nothing that he did not think of or foresee. For a man who was never in the country, and who did not evidently do much in the way of business, his knowledge and acumen were wonderful. When he had satisfied himself on these points of which he had spoken, and I had verified all as well as I could by the books available, he suddenly stood up and said, Have you written since your first letter to our friend, Mr. Peter Hawkins, or to any other? It was with some bitterness in my heart that I answered that I had not. that as yet I had not seen any opportunity of sending letters to anybody. Then right now, my young friend, he said, laying a heavy hand on my shoulder, write to our friend and to any other, and say, if it will please you, that you shall stay with me until a month from now. He said, do you wish me to stay so long? I asked, for my heart grew cold at the thought. He said, you gotta stay for a month. Write to our friend and to any other, and just say, if it will please you, that you shall stay with me until a month from now. Do you wish for me to stay so long? I asked, for my heart grew cold at the thought. I desire it much. Nay, I will take no refusal. I will take no refusal. When your master, employer, what you will, engage that someone should come on his behalf, it was understood that my needs only were to be consulted. I have not stinted. Is it not so? What could I do but bow acceptance? It was Mr. Hawkins' interest, not mine, and I had to think of him, not myself. And besides, while Count Dracula was speaking, there was that in his eyes and in his bearing which made me remember that I was a prisoner, and that if I wished it, I could have no choice. Hey, bro, this joint is diabolical. He said, he said, besides, while Count Dracula was speaking, there was that in his eyes and in his bearing which made me remember that I was a prisoner, and that if I wished it, I could have no choice. The Count saw his victory in my bow and his mastery in the trouble of my face, for he began at once to use them, but in his own smooth, resistless way. I pray you, my good young friend, that you will not discourse of things other than business in your letters. It will doubtless please your friends to know that you are well, and that you look forward to getting home to them. Is it not so? He said, don't talk about nothing else. Only thing you better mention in them letters is that you alive and that you're gonna be home soon, that you all right. Don't tell nobody nothing else, just let them know you all right. Shit fucked up. As he spoke, he handed me 3 sheets of notepaper and 3 envelopes. Then it's a limit. You only get 3. They were all of the thinnest foreign post, and looking at them, then at him, and noticing his quiet smile with the sharp canine teeth lying over the red underlip, I understood as well as if he had spoken that I should be careful what I wrote, for he would be able to read it. This is diabolical. Hey, he said, he handed me 3 sheets of notepaper and 3 envelopes. They were all of the thinnest foreign post. And looking at him, and then at him, and noticed his quiet smile with the sharp canine teeth lying over the red lip. I understood as well as he had spoken that I should be careful what I wrote, for he'd be able to read it. So I determined to write only formal notes now, but to write fully to Mr. Harkins in secret, and also to Mina, for to her I could write in shorthand, which would puzzle the Count if he did see it. When I had written my 2 letters, I sat quiet, reading a book whilst the Count wrote several notes, referring as he wrote to them to some books on his table. Then he took up my 2 and placed them with his own and put by his writing materials. After which, the instant the door had closed behind him, I leaned over and looked at the letters, which were face down on the table. I felt no compunction in doing so, for under the circumstances, I felt that I should protect myself in every way I could. I leaned over and looked at the letters, which were face down on the table. I felt no compunction in doing so, for under the circumstances, I felt that I should protect myself in every way I could. One of the letters was directed to Samuel F. Billington, number 7, The Crescent, Whitby. Another to Herr Leutner, Varna. The third was to Coutts & Co., London. And the fourth to Heron Klopstock and Billruth Bankers, Budapest. The second and fourth were unsealed. I was just about to look at them when I saw the door handle move. I sat back in my seat, having just had the time to replace the letters as they had been and to resume my book before the Count, holding still another letter in his hand, entered the room. He took up the letters on the table and stamped them carefully, and turning to me said, I trust you will forgive me, but I have much work to do in private this evening. You will, I hope, find all things as you wish. At the door he turned, and after a moment's pause he said, let me advise you, my dear young friend, nay, let me warn you with all seriousness, that should you leave these rooms, you will not by any chance go to sleep in any other part of the castle. It is old and has many memories, and there are bad dreams for those who sleep unwisely. Be warned. Should sleep now or ever overcome you, or be like to do, then haste to your chamber or to these rooms, for your rest will then be safe. But if you be not careful in this respect, then he finished his speech in a gruesome way, for he motioned with his hands as if he were washing them. I quite understood. Oh, he said, but if you be not careful in this respect, then he finished his speech in a gruesome way, for he motioned with his hands as if he was washing them. I quite understood. My only doubt was as to whether any dream could be more terrible than the unnatural, horrible net of gloom and mystery which seemed closing around me. Later, I endorsed the last words written, but this time there is no doubt in question. I shall not fear to sleep in any place where he is not. I shall not fear to sleep in any place where he is not. I have placed the crucifix over the head of my bed. I I imagine that my rest is thus freer from my dreams, and there it shall remain. When he left me, I went to my room. After a little while, not hearing any sound, I came out and went up the stone stair to where I could look out towards the south. There was some sense of freedom in the vast expanse, inaccessible though it was to me, as compared with the narrow darkness of the courtyard. Looking out of this, I felt that I was indeed in prison, and I seemed to want a breath of fresh air, though it were of the night. I am beginning to feel this nocturnal existence tell on me. It is destroying my nerve. I start at my own shadow, and am full of sorts of horrible imaginings. God knows that there is ground for my terrible fear in this accursed place. I look out over the beautiful expanse, bathed in soft yellow moonlight, till it was almost as light as day. In the soft light, the distant hills became melted, and the shadows in the valleys and gorges of velvety blackness. In the soft light, the distant hills became melted, and the shadows in the valleys and the gorges of velvety blackness. The mere beauty seemed to cheer me. There was peace and comfort in every breath I drew. As I leaned from the window, my eye was caught by something moving a story below me, and somewhat to my left, where books are always better than the film. As I leaned from the window, my eye was caught by something moving a story below me, and somewhat to my left, where I imagined from the order of the rooms that the windows of the Count's own room would look out. That the windows of the Count's own room would look out. The window at which I stood was tall and deep, stone mullioned, and though weather-worn, was still complete, but it was evidently many a day since the case had been there. I drew back behind the stonework and looked carefully out. What I saw was the Count's head coming out from the window. I did not see the face, but I knew the man by the neck and the movement of his back and arms. In any case, I could not mistake the hands which I had so many opportunities of studying. I was at first interested and somewhat amused, for it is wonderful how small a matter will interest and amuse a man when he is a prisoner. But my very feelings changed to repulsion and terror when I saw the whole man slowly emerge from the window and begin to crawl down the castle wall over the dreadful abyss, face down, with his cloak spreading out around him like great wings. Hey, bro, it was a turn. Okay, all right, so you understand what's going on right now. I'm trying to read this one more time because, since we're getting lost, we kind of getting lost and stuff. And the filler. Okay. What I saw was the Count's head coming out from the window. I did not see the face, but I knew the man by the neck and movement of his back and arms. In any case, I could not mistake the hands, which I had so many opportunities of studying. I was first interested and somewhat amused, for it is wonderful how small a matter will interest and amuse a man when he's a prisoner. But my very feelings changed to repulsion and terror when I saw the whole man slowly emerge from the window and began to crawl down the castle wall over that dreadful abyss, face down, with his cloak spreading out around him like great wings. He is seeing the Count Dracula crawl down the castle walls. He hopped out. He came out the window and is crawling down the walls, face down. And he ain't falling down. He's crawling down the wall. At first, I could not believe my eyes. I thought it was some trick of the moonlight, some weird effect of shadow, but I kept looking, and it could be no delusion. I saw the fingers and toes grasp the corners of the stones, worn clear of the mortar by the stress of years, and by thus using every projection, an inequality moved downwards with considerable speed, just as a lizard moves along a wall. What manner of man is this? Or what manner of creature is it in the semblance of man? I feel the dread of this horrible place overpower me. I am in fear, in awful fear, and there is no escape for me. I am encompassed about with terrors that I dare not think of. This ain't getting good, ain't it? This ain't getting good, ain't it? This ain't getting good. It's like, I'm just wondering when he gonna say something. It's a couple things. It's a couple things. You know how like reality is setting in. It's a couple things. Reality is setting in. So it was one when what's the first jump? I guess it's certain things he was like, brush it off. It's like, all right. He brushed certain things off. That was one thing. But then there's one thing to brush it off. But then he's like, nah, there's no servants here. The Count is the one cooking and cleaning and moving. The Count is the only one here. So now he realized he's alone with the Count. Then he really thought it was servants. Like, who's the one doing the cooking and making up the beds and this and the third? He'll never see it. That's one. And then he was shaving. And his shaving glass, the Count popped up. And he like, I should be able to see somebody in the glass. The Count standing right behind him. He like, I don't see him in the glass. He don't see no reflection in the mirror. He like, oh shit. And then the Count says, write letters to your friends. Not only should you write a letter, you better only speak of business. Gave him some thin paper. He said, yeah, if you say anything else, I'm gonna read it. And I'm gonna know what you said in these letters. Like, oh shit. Then, now he see him crawling over the wall. Now he see him crawling up the castle wall. Yeah. He said, tell your friends you're gonna be here a month. Hey, bro, tell your friends you're gonna be here a month. Huh? He's like, do you need me to stay that long? Yeah. And then, and then he's like, whatchamacallit? He said, I take no refusal. He just had to, he bowed. And he's like, there ain't nothing that, he said, ain't nothing I can do. He said, he went to the castle, all the doors locked. He said, it's a prison. And I'm a prisoner. He knows I'm a prisoner. He knows he got me locked up. He knows I can't do shit. Oh, fuck. But now, it's like, now that he's seen them crawl over the wall, I'm really wondering, when is he gonna say something? And he can't say much or do anything. He can't say or much or do anything. It's quite sad. It's the predicament that he finds himself in. All right, the book is it still has a lot of filler. Like there's a lot of, you know what I'm saying? But it does do a good job of course, setting the scene. Everything's so descriptive. The ordering of the words and things like that. But I mean, this is not the first book I've read that'll do something like that. But like within a sentence, like if you had to edit, like if I had to write this book over, right? If I had to write this book and just make it, you know, kind of more modern, but at least just so the average reader could read it. I mean, it's easier than that, right? It's easier than trying to read some Shakespeare and trying to make it whatchamacallit. But if I had to write this over and just cut out all the filler, cut out all the filler stuff, or just rearrange the words. You know what's also coming to mind is the with the idea of reincarnation. And they're like, imagine being an artist and then coming back and you admiring the work that you did in the past life. Imagine reading a book that you wrote in a past life. And imagine listening to music and admiring the music. Like, you don't know why you just fell in love with certain songs and these melodies, or why you're so interested in like certain books just has your attention. The music, the art, just imagine whatever it is, you created it in a past life and admiring it in another life and critiquing it and falling in love with it. Would you fall in love with it? Or would you despise it? Like, you'd be like, I could have did way better than this. It's true though, you never know. Like like, even if you could leave a message to yourself in a future lifetime, you wouldn't exactly know that it was you. That is a very, those riddles, like the one with you come to a fork in the road, one leads you to the city, one leads you to like wherever, and it's two twin brothers that live in a house, and you gotta add, one brother always tells the truth and the other brother always lies. What question would you ask so that it doesn't matter which brother comes to the door, you know which way to go? How could you ever phrase something and be like, that was me? Yep. There's nothing you can say to just be like, well, you could read, or there's no picture and there's nothing like, no, that was me in a past life. Yep, that was me right there. Yep. I did that. Yep, I sure did. That would be like, that is a philosophical question. It doesn't matter what the picture looks like, what the literature is, whether it's a book or a letter or whatever. Can't be like, no, I did that. The part of the story that made me the happiest was when he smoked a cigar. I was like, yeah. Once more, have I seen the Count go out in his lizard fashion. He moved downwards in a sidelong way, some 100 feet down, and a good deal to the left. He vanished into some hole or window. When his head had disappeared, I leaned out to try and see more, but without avail. The distance was too great to allow a proper angle of sight. I knew he had left the castle now, and thought to use the opportunity to explore more than I dared to do as yet. I went back to the room and, taking a lamp, tried all the doors. They were all locked, and as I had expected, the locks were comparatively new. But I went down the stone stairs to the hall where I had entered originally. I found that I could pull back the bolts easily enough and unhook the great chains. But the door was locked and the key was gone. He went back to where he came in through. I went down the stairs to the hall where I had entered originally. I found I could pull back the bolts easily enough and unhook the great chains, but the door was locked and the key was gone. The key must be in the Count's room. I must watch should his door be unlocked so that I can get it and escape. I went on to make a thorough examination of the various stairs and passages, and to try the doors that opened from them. One or two small rooms near the hall were open, but there was nothing to see in them except old furniture dusty with age and moth-eaten. At last, however, I found one door at the top of the stairway, which, it seemed to be locked, gave a little under pressure. I tried it harder and found that it was not really locked, but that the resistance came from the fact that the hinges had somewhat fallen off, and the heavy door rested on the floor. Here was an opportunity, which I might not have again. So I exerted myself, and with many efforts, forced it back so that I could enter. I was now in a wing of the castle further to the right than the rooms I knew, and a story lower down. From the windows, I could see that the suite of rooms lay along to the south of the castle, and the windows of the end room looking out both west and south. On the latter side, as well as to the former, there was a great precipice. The castle was built on the corner of a great rock, so that on three sides it were quite impregnable, and great windows were placed here where sling or bow or covering could not reach, and consequently light and comfort, impossible to a position which had to be guarded, were secured. To the west was a great valley, and then rising far away, great jagged mountain fastness, rising peak on peak, the sheer rock studded with mountain ash and thorn, whose roots clung in cracks and crevices and crannies of the stone. This was evidently the portion of the castle occupied by the ladies in bygone days, for the furniture had more air of comfort than any I had seen. The windows were curtainless, and the yellow moonlight flooding in through the diamond panes enabled one to see even colors, whilst it softened the wealth of dust which lay over all. And disguised in some measure of ravages of time and the moth. My lamp seemed to be of little effect in the brilliant moonlight, but I was glad to have it with me, for there was a dread loneliness in the place which chilled my heart and made my nerves tremble. Still, it was better than living alone in the rooms which I had come to hate from the presence of the Count, and after trying a little to school my nerves, I found a little quietude come over me. Here I am, sitting at a little oak table where in old times possibly some fair lady sat to pen. With much thought and many blushes, her ill-spelt love letter, and writing in my diary in shorthand all that has happened since I closed it last. It is 19th century up to date with a vengeance. And yet, unless my senses deceive me, the old centuries had and have powers of their own, which mere modernity cannot kill. Later, the morning of 16 May, God preserve my sanity, for to this I am reduced. Bro, he said, all I got is my sanity. Safety and the assurance of safety are things of the past. Whilst I live on here, and there is but one thing to hope for, that I may not go mad, if indeed I be not mad already. If I be sane, then surely it is maddening to think that of all the foul things that lurk in this hateful place, the Count is the least dreadful to me, that to him alone I can look for safety, even though this be only whilst I can serve his purpose. Great God, merciful God, let me be calm, for out of that way lies madness indeed. I begin to get new lights on certain things which have puzzled me. Up to now, I never quite knew what Shakespeare meant when he made Hamlet say, "My tablets, quick, my tablets! 'Tis meet that I put it down," etc. For now, feelings as though my brain were unhinged, or as if the shock had come must end in its undoing. I turn to my diary for repose. The habit of entering accurately must help to soothe me. I'm gonna stop here. Page 37. My tablets, quick, my tablets. 'Tis me, I put it down. The Count's Mr. Page 37. I'm on page 37. Oh, shit. I might have to read Shakespeare. Oh, that's gonna be even worse, bro. That's gonna be even worse. I'm on page 37. Read Shakespeare? If I can barely get, if I can barely get through these sentences, I know Shakespeare gonna have me fucked up trying to read them shits. But I might have to read Hamlet. I never read Hamlet. I read Romeo and Juliet, but it's not like you remember Romeo and Juliet. Like, you just know certain things happen. I read Othello, if that's from Shakespeare. But I want to read something classic, which is why the librarian, you know what I'm saying, recommended Dracula. And I just feel like it's only right. Caesar's still alive. And so it's just raining, but not hard. I just need to, I got to keep the tank filtered. I got to at least try. If Caesar's trying to live, I got to at least try to keep the tank filtered. If I can't keep it warm, oh shit. I kept hitting the plants too, man. I don't know why. Yeah, it's 42 degrees. The LED light not working no more. America turned it on. Oh! I thought the LED light wasn't working no more. It was off. Okay. There you go. Water not being filtered right now, though. Hold up. Okay. Bless you, baby. I'm not sure what it is, but Caesar's attracted to something on this side. He did the same thing the other day too. I'm not sure what it is. But he's been alive for at least a week. He's been alive for at least a week. So I'm proud. I'm a plant, fish, dog, tarantula dad. I might look for a little mini water tank heater. I'm gonna try. He's lived over a week. We're Bikini Bottom. There's this one YouTube channel called the Y Files. And in his videos, he has a fish. It's the heckler fish. He has the heckler fish, but it's not a real fish. The heckler fish just kind of says, you know, the things he, you know, like he'll talk a lot, he'll say a lot, but the heckler fish will say some other things and make some other jokes. So Caesar's not going to be a heckler fish. Caesar's going to be a philosophical fish. Maybe, I don't know. I do say, my good Chapman. Yeah, I gotta figure out, we're gonna make an episode with Caesar. Caesar's Cigar Talk at Bikini Bottom. All right, let's do it. Just randomly, right? Okay, hold on. Cause I don't, you know, you can save some phone memory. What's gonna be the topic of conversation? What does Caesar want to talk about? Caesar sees her. What do you want to talk about, Caesar? It's gonna be ASMR. It's gonna be ASMR. Nah, that's kind of crazy. All right, we're gonna do Caesar Cigar Talk. How best can I put this? Right here. Caesar Cigar Talk. Benvenuti nella giungla di graffiti. Welcome to the graffiti jungle. Today, we're having a conversation with Caesar. But Caesar does not want to have negotiations alone. So he brought a tarantula. So I asked Caesar, what do you want to do today? He said the same thing we do every day. Try to take over the world. I said it's diabolical. No one's ever done it. He said, but it's not impossible. I can and I will and I shall. Veni, vidi, vici. But you're a fish. You can't even talk. But you will do my talking for me. Tell the people. That Caesar is here. The people have been looking for a leader, a ruler, a conqueror. Tell them I am here. Shall I tell them that you're a fish, sir? What if they want to see you? Tell them I'm handling business at Bikini Bottom. Tell them if they wish to see me, I'll be at Bikini Bottom. Under the sea. Under the sea. And what about you? I am security. Before they can meet Caesar, they must go through me. I'm the gatekeeper. Me and the stormtrooper. Very well. About 10 o'clock. The water looked clearer than it did.